So here we have the last figures on the large enemy sprue from the Swamps of Death set, and these last two figures are HellBats, and you have 6 of these total in the box. And you can see here the HellBat is in a few different pieces. You have the body, the 2 wings, the head, and the tongue. So we'll just use our clippers to clip these parts off the sprue. And remember, anytime you're using the clippers, you want to use the flat end of the clipper and put it as close to the model as you can. Now, one point of note here is that you want to be careful not to clip off the little peg that goes into the body when you're cutting off these parts. It's also a good idea to hold the piece that you're cutting so it doesn't go flying when you actually clip. So the HellBats are crazy winged creatures that live in the void, and they fly out in big swarms to flood down the tunnels and the passageways of the different other worlds you explore. Now, whenever I'm doing multiple models like this, I'll always clip off the parts for each one and put it in a separate little pile so that I don't confuse the pieces from one figure to the next. Now, HellBats are regular sized monsters, so they go on the 30mm base. Now again, you can use either super glue or plastic cement. For these guys, I'll go ahead and use the plastic cement. Now, because the HellBats have this very large base that they sit on, sometimes it's a good idea, I might recommend taking a hobby knife and just cutting off any excess piece of the sprue that might be left on there. So it's a nice flat connection when you want to glue them down. Alright. So we'll just put the first HellBat together here. So again, you usually want to dry fit the figures together so you can see the little shape fits into the other shape. So you can see how that's going to fit together pretty straightforward. So we'll go ahead and put a little bit of glue on there. And if you ever feel like you get too much glue, you can just dab a little bit of it off. And that way it doesn't squirt out all over the place and create excess goo on your figures. Alright. So there are the wings for the HellBat. And now we can put on his head. And again, you want to sort of dry fit to make sure it's going to fit the way you think it's going to fit. So, now sometimes you'll see that there may be a little bit of excess flash. A lot of times it's good to have a little file handy so you can just file the extra mold lines down so that the pieces will fit more cleanly together. It doesn't take a whole lot to do, but it makes it a lot easier to put the pieces together if there's extra mold lines on there. Alright, you can just line up the shape so it should be like that. So I'll put a little bit of glue on there. And line up the shape and stick it on. Okay, and last but not least, we have the tongues. So let's go ahead and get those in there. They just go right inside the mouth. And again, you line up the shape, put the tongues in, and you have a HellBat. And we can just put a little bit of glue on his base, and then he'll just sit nice and centered right on the base. Might need a little bit more glue on there. Alright, and that is a HellBat. And then we'll just pop the other one together really quick here. So there's different advantages to using super glue or plastic cement. Plastic cement actually melts the pieces and bonds them together. So it creates a really strong connection. And in all, for all intents and purposes, it really becomes just one single piece. Super glue is nice because it tends to bond quickly, but it can break down over time. Also, super glue, you can, if you're not careful, you can stick your fingers together a little bit, which isn't the worst thing ever, but it is mildly unpleasant. So again, you line up the shape like that. Oops. There you go. These pieces are nice because they only fit together one way, so if it's not fitting, it's probably just that it's the wrong orientation. And there's your HellBat number 2. So put some glue on his base there, and center him on the piece. And you have your 2 HellBats from the sprue, ready to fly down the halls in a swarm and swamp the heroes.